This is a silver shiner with a tail from Kieth Fulsher's Thunder Creek series. I'm using the recipe from Mike Valla's The Founding Flies. I'm tying it on a number 6 4x long hook. The recipe calls for anywhere from a 2 to a 10 on anywhere from a 4 to a 6x long hook. I'm using a heavy white thread, wrapping an even undercoating for the body, and this will be built up a little bit as I go along, down to where the bend of the hook starts. Kieth Fulsher experimented with a number of different feathers for the tail on this fly. I'm using covert feathers from a Hungarian partridge. So the coverts are these feathers along the edge of the wing, either outside or inside, depending on what you're looking for exactly. The recipe calls for the coverts from a hen pheasant, which I don't have. So this, I think, approximates the colors, and I'm picking feathers which I think is the appropriate size for the tail on this streamer. So I am stripping off the bottom of the feather, both barbs and fluff, and then I'm going to clip out the tip so that I get a V-notch. I'm going about halfway down, and I'll do that with 2 feathers. So just strip off all the fluff and the bottom barbs of what is going to be the tail. So measure them together and get about the same size. I'm turning it over because of my right-handedness and wanting to clip that stem out. Oh, I didn't get the stem. Get that V-notch. And then to help with tying this feather and to get it to stay where I want it to stay, I'm going to take my flat pliers and I'm going to crush the rachis, hold that feather in so that it's perpendicular, and it'll give me a flat rachis. Try to keep it there without spinning, and just squeeze that to kind of flatten it. I'm going to clip off the far end down here where it's a little bit heavier, but I'm going to tie that in along the shank to try to keep a smooth shank. And I do want those feathers to lean downwards a little bit, so I've taken feathers off of each wing, try to get them oriented the best I can. This one again, I need to smash the rachis. See how I can orient that the best. So I want that feather tied in right there at the beginning of the bend, and that will be the tail on this minnow imitation. Get it to stand upright. Looks fine. Let's go ahead and wrap up along that entire rachis all the way to the end. I'm trying to build a little bit of bulk for the body, which will be wrapped with tinsel, but also to keep an even body. I find that if the body is even, the tinsel wraps a great deal better. This rachis isn't nearly as long, but that's fine. With the thicker piece of the first rachis, the second one will even out. A shorter one will even out the body, I hope. So just cover that with thread and then wrap back down over that. I find it fairly important to keep the body nice and even, or as even as I can. It helps the tinsel to wrap better. Probably more accessible to have a mylar tinsel, but I happen to have been given a piece of metal tinsel, and I'm going to wrap that against the body. Let me get it wrapped in nice and tight here by the tail where I'm going to start the wrap, and then wrap over it. Go down the body. That's going to help to hold it in, but also keep that body even. And then I can use a few thread wraps here to keep an even body. I don't have to go all the way down to the eye of the hook because it's got a fairly large head. So then I'll just take that tinsel and touching overlapping wraps down the entire length of the shank, hoping that I grabbed a long enough piece of tinsel that I can get all the way down to where the head will be. I don't know who decided that tinsel bodies were a good thing. It looks nice, but they're hard to wrap and keep nice and even. The tinsel tends to buckle. Even this metal tinsel tends to buckle a little bit. That's going to mostly be hidden by the wing or sides of the body. And then I let go of that because it's kind of short, so I'm going to unwrap that and do it again. And maybe what I ought to do, since I have discovered I'm a little bit short on that tinsel, is grab it with my hackle plier. Or at least when I get down to the end, put a hackle plier on it so I don't let go of it again. Alright. Try this again. Try to keep those wraps touching, even overlapping a little bit to get good coverage. And it's fun to have friends that help build my fly tying supplies by giving me some of these old and kind of unique materials like a metal tinsel. You can buy metal tinsel today. It's just that the mylar is much more available. And the mylar generally is a bicolor. It's gold on one side and silver on the other, so there's a little bit more versatility with it. You just have to tie it in with the side that you want showing against the shank of the hook, and then it'll flip when you start tying it. I'll just hold my finger against the shank and make sure that it doesn't come unwound again. And I'm sure that I'll have somebody in the comments say, use a hackle plier. And I ought to, which I just let go of it again. But I did pull up on it. I think I'm going to be okay. Okay, I think that's far enough. So I will catch it in with 3 wraps over the top. And then I'm going to pull up on that and wrap under it nice and tight to secure it. And I can clip that off, or I can because it's metal, see if I can just bend it back and forth and break it. There we go. Okay, I'm okay with that. For the body and head, I'm using bucktail, and it's a sparse bucktail, so that's maybe even too much, but we'll see. I'm going to stack it. The ends are all over the place here, and there are some shorter pieces. Let me pull the shorter pieces out. And then I'm going to put this in my stacker. Let me see. I think I'm going to cut it before I put it in the stacker. Trim off these ends. What I'm trying to do is avoid short hairs. I'll just push those through the stacker backwards, actually. I find that it works for me. Get those all even. Put the stacker together. I'm going to pull them out of the stacker with the tips towards the eye of the hook, because I'm going to tie it in, hanging out over the eye. And this is going to be the underbody, so I'll turn my hook over. And I'm going to measure the length that I want those, so a little bit longer than the shank. And then grab that point where I have that length and put them out over the eye of the hook and wrap up over those, trying to keep them on the underside of the hook. And then wrap up right to the eye. See, what I don't want is some short hair here, because I'm going to fold that over to create the head and then the body. And I'll wrap back up over that down to where I have my tinsel. And then I'm going to clip off all the waste here. And it is a very sparse bucktail body. Go ahead and clip these out. The angle here doesn't matter a whole lot. That's going to all get covered up. Make sure that that's well tied in. And then I will turn my hook back right side up. And I have a clump that I've pulled out from the top side of that bucktail. Pull the short stuff off from underneath. And I want it fairly sparse, kind of like the underbelly. And I'll take that, get it pinched down here at the butt end so I can put it in the stacker. Again, I'm grabbing them by the tips and pulling them out with the tips towards the eye of the hook. And since I have the body already, the underbody measured, I can just measure the same length. And I'm going to wrap up over those and keep those on the top of the shank as best I am able. I already got them going elsewhere. Just pinch those together tight. Try to keep the brown on top and a little bit separated if I can, so that it stays on top when I bend it back. I'll go ahead and clip out the butt ends. And wrap back up nice and tight over those ends down to here where the head is going to end. And then I'll take the brown, which is supposed to all be on top, grab it and lean it back, and I want to keep it tight. So hang on to that brown and keep it pulled back nice and tight. Wrap up over it. Turn my hook back up. I've got a little bit of a bulge there, but that's going to be okay. Grab the underbelly, white, lean it back, and pull back on it tight also. I got one little short one there. I probably have to clip out a couple of them and wrap up over that as well. And then I just build a little band right there. Got those two shorties. I'm just going to go ahead and clip those out. I might have had a little bit longer bucktail, but I think it's fine. It's coming down back over the tail, so I'm going to be okay with that. And I'm going to put my whip finish on with that little band of white. And I'm going to do 2 3s since it's not really going to be glued per se. It will get epoxied and painted, but I don't know if it'll get epoxied all the way back to here. Go ahead and clip that out. I've mixed up a little dab of 5-minute epoxy, and I'm going to dab that on the head. Try to keep it applied nice and even. I've got a white hair that's pulled itself loose there, but I'm going to live with it. And I find that if I take my epoxy and apply it from the eye back, I'm more likely to get a nice even finish. I'm not happy with that one hair there that came loose, but I don't know what I can really do about it. I don't know if I can pick it out. I'll just pick it out and leave it out there, and then when the epoxy dries I'll go ahead and cut that one hair off. But then if I keep my fly turning, it's going to help that epoxy to dry, set up evenly. A little bit more on this side. So a nice gentle turn will help that set up. And it is a 5-minute epoxy, but it's maybe a little bit more than 5 minutes until it's ready for its paint. One could certainly use UV resin instead of epoxy for this. The eyes are white dots. They'll have black inner centers in them of enamel paint. I just have a yarn needle that I have cut the tip off of. So I have that round end. This fly also has a painted on gill. So I'm just going to take some red enamel and dab it on that band of thread behind the head, just on the bottom. This needs to dry, obviously, so that I can put the black dot on the eye. The weighting isn't much for you, but for me, There's some time elapse here, but in order to save my time, I do have another fly. See that this eye is not quite as big as on the other one, but I'm going to put a black dot. In the middle of the white eye. Again, black enamel. I have a yarn needle that I have taken and cut the tip off of so that it have a flat point and make the black dots in the eyes.